Good morning from Geneva. If you can hear me, please, we've just put the sound back on. We are starting this third round discussion here at this table with Fabrice Boudou, IT Director from the World Trade Organization. Anytime you're asking a question, please use the microphone so that our online participants can hear us. Thank you, Fabrice.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to introduce this session is following up on things I've just mentioned in the other room. When I joined the WTO 4 years ago, coming from the private sector, I worked in a consumer goods company, and then for 13 years, and then in a industrial B2B company for quite a few years. And when I arrived at the WTO and I met the DG for the first day, he told me, everybody in this house likes IT. They like the service they're getting, the PC works, the network works, everything is up and running, you people are friendly. We like you. But we spend a lot of money on IT and we still work like in the 19th century. There's something to do there. So actually, he didn't even say there's something to do there. He stopped at, we still work like in the 19th century. So to me, it was pretty obvious that I had ahead of me a bit of a difficult challenge. Don't break anything that's actually functioning there because people are happy, but still start transforming how the WTO is working using IT. Just a bit after, I went onto a Forrester forum, and the title of this Forrester forum was digitalizing the relationship with your customer. And I thought, yeah, our customers, it's the members, and I know we're not digital whatsoever. So I started having an idea that on this transformation of the WTO, one of the area is probably how we digitalize the relationship with our members. And how we start not having just face-to-face relationship, but processes and actions that actually use the digital world, worldwide, the web. So that was pretty clear to me that what wasn't a core element of what I could do. So now to put this into perspective, let me give you a bit of an idea about how the WTO functions, the kind of things it does. So you can start picturing what digitalizing the relationship could mean. Well, we are a very traditional house. We're on the other side of the road. If you want to come in as a delegate from a membership, you need a badge. You come in, you go into a meeting room where actually you'd be able to do the activities as a member you're supposed to do with the WTO. That's more or less the only way you have to interact with us, with documents that are published electronically. And what are kind of things that the delegates do with us? I just mentioned 3 elements to do with us. One, we have committees where the committees are supposed to try to come up with new areas of trade agreements. They're struggling. It's a difficult area, you know that, but we had some success in Nairobi in December. But that's what they try to do day in, day out, finding new areas and trying to agree and discuss new areas of agreements in agriculture, in intellectual property, in all the areas that are dealt with in the WTO. The second piece they do, and they do probably more of this, is they are there to monitor that the other members apply the rules that have already been agreed properly. There's an element of transparency where the Secretariat collects information about what the other members do. We expose it to the other members, and then they can discuss into a meeting to say, all right, when you've applied this law, it's not according to actually the rule that we agreed in 85, or it is, but please explain this to me a little more. So they actually discuss in every of those trade area how the various countries are applying the rules agreed at the WTO. And if that discussion doesn't lead to, yes, I agree and understand, they might go to a dispute. You probably hear of the disputes that are handled at the WTO. So those are 3 of the core mandates of the WTO: negotiating, transparency, and disputes. And all of this happens through, I would call this the brick and mortar of the diplomacy. Physical meetings, face-to-face, committees, documents, translators being in the room or interpreters being in the room, everything translated in 3 languages, very traditional. So this is the use case I have in my hands. And now let me tell you the first step we did to start it, well, getting a finger into this area. I've talked about badges. Well, we actually started putting in place a system to not just give people a badge, but give them an individual identity electronically. Up to now, the delegations have one name, one password that they share across the entire delegation. So is it Mr. X that comes to see what's happening on IP from the US mission? We have no idea. We just know it's the US mission. So in terms of building relationship, knowing who we're dealing with, we don't do this. Oh, sorry. So what we started doing is we transformed this tool to actually get you badge into a self-registration platform to also give them at the same time as a badge an electronic identity, a name and a password, which is attached to the individual, a self-registration platform. And then we faced some issues. First, we made our tool a bit too complex. Yeah? First time, guilty, we made it a bit too complex. But then we also had some other issues that were very difficult for us to actually go around. Certain very senior people, diplomats, well, guess what? They don't want to go into a PC and self-register. I don't touch a PC. Somebody else is going to do this for me. So you have people who actually refuse to self-register. Many of them, I don't think so. But we have also, in the middle of the process, the people who actually make this even worse. We have what we call Delegate Coordinators, who have been traditionally the people filling up the data on behalf of these guys. And they want to carry on doing it this way. They don't want to ask the ambassador, please register yourself. They don't want to. They refuse to help us in the process. They prefer to keep it for themselves. Okay, that doesn't help. Then internally, you have in WTO the people that say, okay, I already have a list of email addresses of the people I deal with all the time, and I want to keep this for myself. I don't want this to be shared across. And they don't say this kind of a malicious way. They know that they can work very efficiently with this. They have personal relationship and it works. So I know that if I start publishing these emails address, I'm kind of touching something going against the traditional way of working. Then we have the other extreme. We have the people that very happy with the self-registry, but they think it's Facebook. And instead of actually, for example, loading a photo that we can put onto the badge, they've loaded a kind of fashion picture. We have this woman who actually she looks great, by the way, and she's kind of profile with her hair going in the background and the bridge in the background, and we're supposed to put this on the badge. Yeah, okay, guess what? It doesn't work. Yeah? So we have both extremes of this change where we kind of we discover as we go, we get beaten, and therefore the question I'm asking is, I know I have to go down this journey. Some of my director colleagues also know we have to go down this journey of opening up digitally to our delegates worldwide. We know we have to bring the IP expert from the capital, that they might not all be at the US mission or another mission, and that actually we have to bring these people from the capital to participate to some of these meetings and these discussions that take place at the WTO. We know that for the least developed countries, they can't afford to have people in Geneva. So how can they participate? We know that the digital world can break somehow these barriers. We know we have to go down that path. Not everybody knows, but some of us know. And therefore, what we're trying to find out is, how do we do this without breaking what's actually working here already? How do we do this? By bringing the people on without forcing them down that path. So this is kind of questions I would like to put to all of you.
Questions from you? Please come closer.
The cable is not long enough, sorry.
Thank you. Just to build on your last comment about the LDCs who don't have the means to send people to the meetings, there's one very important process with, you mentioned it as, I think, as number 2, the trade policy review. When every country is being, in that sense, analyzed, whether they keep to their commitments, it's a major effort. In general, it's done very well. The investment in time and energy is considerable, but it would be, of course, also useful to have the people at home to be able to benefit what is being discussed here in Geneva. Now, some of this is confidential, I understand it cannot be put online, but if a country, let's say, agrees, they cannot send people because of financial resources, but they would like to have the session be broadcasted, or people in the capital that they could participate in the question and answer. How would you organize that? Thank you.
You making me extremely hopeful. Your questions, because as IT, we don't deal with the delegates, the members. So this kind of, I guess you close to some LDCs countries, this kind of voice from the actual participants, I don't hear it. What I hear are the directors that manage, for example, the TPR review. I hear from them. And what we've managed to agree with them to do is we've put an online Q&A system. You mentioned the question and answer. So we are testing right now, piloting an online tool where members can ask questions online and the member that is being reviewed can answer them online. We're just testing, we're just learning. Yeah, we're piloting it. We tried to pilot it with Thailand, I think, recently. The questions came in, the answers didn't because Thailand didn't want to participate. Difficult, yeah? But we're very keen actually on opening that process so people can really participate, not just from here, but whoever is actually logged on and can sign in. So we can work on this, and I'd be very happy to actually carry on that conversation and look with the TPR director how we can move on to this. We call it the Q&A for TPR, so Q&A TPR. And the other things about broadcasting sessions, we are working right now on improving our video conferencing facility. So hopefully this will support sessions like TPR. We already started doing some kind of podcast of the TPR, but that's not the same thing. It's after the event, and you can listen to what has happened. But I think what you're trying to get is participating. Yeah. So it's really video conferencing facilities, and we are improving our video conferencing facility. Now, is TPR the right animal to try it on? I don't know, because it's also what's something that was actually raised earlier on in one of the sessions is if you start moving digital for something which is critical, if your video conferencing breaks down in the middle of somebody talking and answering something, then you have a bit of an issue. So, but on the other hand, it might still be better to have a bit of an issue when he's answering rather than he's not in the room and he can answer. So it's arguable, but moving into something like the TPR, I don't know if it's too risky for us now, but definitely I'll be open to actually, my colleagues will be open to start looking into this.
We can't hear you online.
Sorry.
We actually wrote a small little policy brief on this, and Mr. Lamy was very, very much in favor of it, but of course, as you know, he ended his term. I don't know what the current Director General's opinion is, but in general, others in the field think it would be extremely useful. Not just that others can get in and talk to the people who already participate, more or less, but, you know, in their countries, oftentimes, not all the time, but oftentimes this is kept to a small circle of people with one or two ministries. And the people who should know about what's being debated here at the WTO are the people who run business, to some extent even civil society. They need to know what has been discussed, what are the problems, and then engage in maybe an additional strategic discussion. Once the TPR is finished, the country has to assess what it wants to do for the next 4 years. That's not part of the TPR, but it will be most useful if the country debates this, which is very much lacking at the present time. And for this, your technology could facilitate that people in the LDCs could get at least some information about what has been discussed.
So I need to be a bit careful. I'm the IT guy, which means in terms of protocol, what we can and cannot do with the civil society in a TPR, I don't know. You are referring to this, and it's probably, we have to be careful on this, because the sessions that happens here, they're not open to the public. Now, after that, the communication on it is, and it can be a choice that certain of them actually are made public. So there are ways of moving this forward, but I guess you need agreement on how much you can open the sessions that are taking place to the public. We have also webcasting facility that we're also working on, which is not you participate, it is you listen, you can see. And again, it's a matter of politically choosing what you open to webcast, what you don't. And so it's not, the technology can be there. We can move forward on this. Then after that, there's a political decision on what you open and what you don't open.
It's great to have Fabrice, great to have you here and following our interesting discussion and inspiring discussion. One question is based on experience from internet governance and digital policy field. Is, for example, WTO forum way to start it? Basically, we mentioned two possible entry points. One is very critical negotiation, like TPI. I'm not into acronyms, and the other is less critical, which is WTO public forum, I guess, which is going. Is it a way to start maybe and to go bottom up instead of top down, which is legitimate approach as well?
In my mind, those are two different business cases that need to meet. I don't plan to choose to do either. I'm planning to try to move on both. What I mean there is the public forum, we need to use all the means we have to make it as open to the world as possible. I'm not going to have too many resistance in the House to make webcasts on this. To the contrary, they're actually trying to do this, and they were going to look for IT to find a way of doing it more cheaply. But it's not a question of doing it or not. They want to do this and open it up completely. I can help on the registration process. On the more confidential meetings, I think this is more difficult. But as you mentioned, some members are going to ask for this. They're going to say, give me the ability for my guys in the capital to participate, not just listen, participate. So I don't think I have to choose. I think we need to do both. And these two worlds are going to meet in certain places. Not for everything, but they're going to meet certain places. There might be certain discussions that are open, certain documents that are not confidential to just the membership, but to the public more quickly. We saw it in Nairobi. The closing ceremony was kind of informally open to the press. Yeah, the press was in the room. And it was kind of, was it an accident? Well, I'm not so sure. So it happens. It happens. So, yes.
I may have missed it, but what security measures do you have in place for confidential meetings?
No, you have not missed it. We didn't actually talk about this whatsoever. The registration platform we putting in place to give an identity to the members is actually secured with the right type of environment. And our video conferencing facility is actually hosted by ourselves on a technology also that makes it secure. So is it 100% secure? I'm not going to claim this. I'm in IT, and I know I cannot be. But we actually have our security officer that reviews this infrastructure for us, and we're doing everything we can for the registration, the IDs, and then the channels where we actually exchange this information to be secure. I'm not going to go into the technical aspect. I'm not too sure I can anyway. But if you want to find out a bit more about this, we do take into account the security aspect as soon as it relates to members. When it relates to public, less so, because then we open. We just need to make sure that we don't get attacked, but that's about all.
Thank you for understanding. There has been a very, very lively discussion in the online room, especially on the comments about the disconnect between the IT staff and participants. The question is this a necessary separation for protocol and security, or is it possible to build a bridge for better communication? And around these lines, yes, so because the participants in situ, when they reach out to the technical team, there are certain protocol considerations, but the online participants then have a bit different experience. How much does the protocol aspects really come into the question in that case when you're opening up your meetings? Technical support, yes.
I'm still not sure I understand the question. Is it about how the protocol impacts the online participation of people? A physical one. Okay, so the only thing I can tell you is when we build this e-registration platform, we actually involved the protocol people in our house to make sure that what we were doing was according to the rules of the house. So, and that created that made some rules more complex than we wished. An example is we have this delegate coordinator. The delegate coordinator can only be named by the permanent representative. which means first we need to reach the permanent representative. And the permanent representative very often is not interested in doing anything which is IT related. So that creates loops for us that we wished we could actually jump over. Similarly, the rules is that actually the members, the delegates, need to be named by the delegate coordinator. So that again, that creates rules for us to put in place on the e-registration that we wished we could avoid, and that in a place like Facebook, of course, you can avoid, but we can't. So this is this kind of loops we have to go through that actually make the engagement in that world more complex. And I wish it was not.
Thank you. The online participants appreciated your answer. I can see in the chat. And I think we have time for the last question. Thank you.
Hi, it sounds very interesting what you're doing with the online registration. My question is just in terms of what other features have you offered from IT for various conferences? For example, at the World Health Organization, we have our executive board going on right now, and we have an app for that. And one of the most useful things for staff is to be able to follow the actual EB without having to listen to all the disciplines. You can quickly see on the app where you are and when sessions change. What other features do you have through IT that's happening there at ITU?
We have very few. And I guess that's the point of that journey, is to kind of start bringing up the right ones. I just mentioned the very few we have ventured into. I mentioned we have, so I don't know if that's what you're thinking about, but the video conferencing we have, webcasting we have. We put up an app during the last ministerial conference where people had the ability to start talking to each other and where you could see the complete program of the event. Was it live, knowing what was happening? No. And there was no Twitter or anything like this behind, but we start getting into these areas. We talked about the TPR, the trade policy review. We are trying to put a question and answer online solution for this to allow the members to talk to each other online. We also have applications to allow members, and they've been there for a long time, to allow members to provide some information. It's called notification, to notify online their rules in their own countries without sending papers. So we do a lot of digital things to open up to the world. But I've mentioned probably the complete portfolio of aspects we're doing. Is it sufficient? There's more we need to do. That's very clear. And the WEF can probably show us quite a few of them.